Are you trying to figure out how to fish with one of these tubes right here? We're going to talk about that. Welcome back to another episode of 5 Minute Fish Talk, a show where I have 5 minutes to discuss all things fishing. The show appears every single Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time Zone, so click the red subscribe button below to stay tuned. I just loaded 5 minutes on this timer here, and you know what that means. Boop. Time to get real. Sorry. It's just time to get real, and we're talking about tube fishing. What is so exciting about tube fishing? Tube fishing is exciting because I grew up in Kansas. Why does that matter? I grew up in Kansas. Talk to somebody that fishes bass seriously in Kansas. What are they going to tell you that they throw and they love catching fish on? A tube. Tubes are so productive back home. I don't know what it is, but everybody throws them and everybody catches fish on them. Now, as I've moved around over the last couple of years, what I've realized is that a tube is not only special in Kansas. In fact, a tube is special everywhere. But why is it special? What is this goofy little bait? What's so great about it? What's great about it is just like a Ned rig, as I've spoke about in multiple other videos, this can mimic so many different species, it's unreal. This can look like a baby bass, this can look like a perch, this can look like a goby, this can look like a crawfish, this can look like a bluegill. The list goes on and on and on. And if you choose the right color and the profile according to your area, guess what? You're gonna catch fish on it. But as we think about this bait, it's important to rig it up correctly to catch the most amount of fish that you possibly can. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into that, the one thing that I'm going to tell you is this. When you choose how to rig these baits, the main point of consideration that you should take into account is what kind of cover and structure will you be fishing. So let's think about that. As I move through these baits, make sure to think about what kind of cover and structure are you going to be fishing to where you're choosing the right one accordingly. So let's get into my first one. This is a little bitsy tube. The only way to really throw this, in my opinion, is on a little tube jig. So you have an insert and you put it inside of the tube and then you throw it and the hook sticks out the back. These little bitsy tubes are so productive. So if you're just starting to get into tube fishing and you want to just gain some confidence in it, get a bitsy tube. It's very, very, very similar to a Ned rig in profile, but what's great about it is that you can actually use a little bit heavier weight and get away with it. So whether you're using Z-Man's bait or a Mismo or whatever bait you're using, this has a great profile, you can get great colors of it, and it can mimic a lot of species, and it just catches a lot of fish. So that would be a good entry-level tube to throw. I still throw them all the time, but the next one is just similar concept here. It's a tube jig. You put it inside of the tube, so you just insert it like you're putting stuffing in a turkey's butt, and then you, and then the hook comes out the back, and this really has that spiraling action when it's falling. It's very, very natural. It's my favorite, absolute favorite way to rig a tube. Here's why I don't always throw it, is because it has an open hook. So what happens is when you're fishing around any heavy cover, this thing's obviously gonna snag a lot easier than the other forms of rigging this bait. Now, where would I throw this though? In open water, in areas that have a lot of rock, in areas where I'm more drift fishing. If I'm fishing in like a river or a creek, I'm 100% gonna throw it this way. If I'm fishing out on a big long point that has rocks, I'm 100% gonna throw it this way. And you're just gonna drag it or you're gonna pop it off the bottom. Just the same way you would fish a jig or anything else that's bottom hopping, you can apply those same techniques with this. The next thing is like I said, if you get to the point where you have some cover out there, you have some wood, you have some grass, that's where you're not going to be able to get away with this because of that exposed hook. So that's where you're going to get into a Texas rig. The one thing that I'm going to tell you today that is probably more valuable than anything else is the best tube hook on the market. And I don't have any ties to this company. I just flat out believe they make a great product, a superior product to others around the market. And what is that? It's an eagle claw. It's like a laser sharp. I've got all this stuff linked in the description below, so you can check it out down there. But it's this little tube hook. It's got this great, unique body style, or like, I guess, wire shaft style. But the best part about it is it's got this little keeper at the top. And what that's going to do is you're going to hook it around. And so once you Texas rig this, the tube head is going to stay on there the whole time. You're never going to lose a bunch of baits, but it can slide up and down the hook. So you can still catch those fish and land those fish. That is important. So that, my friends, you should check that hook out. I'm telling you, it's a must-have. It's really inexpensive, and it's definitely worth it. The next way I'm going to fish, so where do I fish this though? This is going to be around like sparse cover, grass, wood, so on and so forth. It's that lighter wire hook to where you're not going to be fishing really, really deep, heavy cover with it. And that brings me to my next point. If you are in a situation where you're fishing like really heavy cover, you're flipping grass, you're flipping wood, and you're really up close and battling these fish, that's where you're going to want to use something with a heavier gauge wire hook. This happens to be like a trocar tube hook. They're really, really heavy gauge. This would be great for flipping. And flipping a tube can be very productive, especially if you are behind, maybe you like fishing. You know what? That got me to the last point. Really, the last point was this tube hook can be very effective for when you're fishing around really, really heavy cover and you're fishing up close and you're flipping and pitching. I flip and pitch tubes when it's a little bit clearer water, and a lot of times I think that that will help you catch more fish than maybe like a big jig. Regardless, guys, these tubes are effective everywhere you go. The moral of the story is this: tubes are highly, highly effective, but you need to make sure you're rigging them correctly, because if you don't, either you're gonna just break off a bunch of lures on wood and stuff like that, or you're not gonna land the amount of fish that you should. So check out all these baits, like I said, linked in the description below. Let me know if you have any further questions. Let me know if you have any suggestions for a future video. And last but not least, have yourself a fantastic weekend, and we'll catch you next time.